We're flying to the stars. Love told me that you're a work of art. Baby, I loved you from the start. I know that I should listen to my heart. And it goes like,
So good day everyone. So I am the moderator of group 3. So in this video we are going to discuss the affective assessment, which is going to be discussed by Stephen Seriote and Fernando Bacalso, and also the portfolio assessment, which will be discussed by me and Layana Paula. So let's start.
Affective assessment. So, affective assessment first. So, we had is an assessment based on students' attitude, interests, and values. So, as given the fact that affective assessment, it could be the children or the students' attitude, and also their interest of what they're doing to they are going to do. So, and also the values of that students. According to Bloom's taxonomy of learning domains, so Bloom's taxonomy was created in 1956 under the leadership of educational psychologist Dr. Benjamin Bloom in order to promote higher form of thinking in education, such as analyzing and evaluating rather than just remembering the facts. So there are three domains. So first, cognitive and psychomotor. So last, affective. So
how should you use cognitive? Cognitive skills and knowledge involve the ability to acquire the factual information, often the kind of knowledge that can easily be tested. Psychomotor learning is the relationship between cognitive function and physical movement. Psychomotor learning is the demonstrated by physical skills such as movement, coordination, manipulation, dexterity, grace, and strength. Affective in psychology refers to the underlying experience of the feeling, emotions, and or mood.
affective domain. So the affective taxonomy, which describes the objectives that reflects underlying the emotions, the feelings or values rather than cognitive complexity. So it also the taxonomy describes a process by which another persons or a group or society, so also the ideas, beliefs, customs, philosophies, attitudes, and so on, so are gradually accepted and internalized by a different person, group, or society. So affective domain is also the process or usual begins with a minimal, partial, or incomplete acceptance of alternative points of view, and culminates with the complete integration of this point of view so into the individual's personal belief system. So affective domain, so as what I've read, so it could be describes the best what we call the feelings or values. It could be rather than cognitive or thought complexity. So developing the affective domain. So certain positive values needs to be introduced to our students. So as a future educator, so these are the developing affective domain. So the various academic subject, for instance, the first, the mathematics teacher. So this is an example. So can be developed the value of self-discipline and also of honest and integrity in his lesson. So as a future educator, so developing of affective domain, so it could be have self-discipline, so it could be have honesty. So it is well known that mathematics as a part of utilitarian function develops disciplined minds and forces the student to think logically. So, as what I've got, sinasabi natin na ang math pinaka mas complex na asignatura or subject. So, lisod gid ang math nga i-handle. So, mo na gihatag nga example dere.
So, good morning everyone. So, I'm Stephen M. Saliote from BTLED HA2B. In continuation of the reporting of Fernando Jr., I will be discussing the affective learnings and competencies. So, affective learning competencies are often stated in the form of instructional objectives. So the concern on this topic is how or what do the learners feel when or while learning. So it really varies the objective of the teacher and how do the teacher teach on their learners. So next is these are the specific statements of learners' behavior or outcomes that are expected to be exhibited by students after completing a unit of instruction. A unit of instruction may, for example, means a 6 week lesson of the Filipino culture, a 1 week lesson of algebraic expression, a class period on subtracting with borrowing. So, there are two types of instructional objectives: the behavioral objectives and the expressive objectives. So, first, the behavioral objective. So, from the word itself, behavioral, you, as a teacher, you rely on the behavior of your learners. So, in that case, you are adjusting on the learner's behavior. So, you will make a objective that is compatible, or what do I mean is that your objective meets the needs of the learners. So next is the expressive objectives. So on these objectives, you are no longer adjusting on your students or your learners. Your goal in this objective is just to allow your learners to gain a experience. So next, the focal concept in affective domain. So the only focal concept is the attitude. The word attitude, from Latin aptus, is defined within the framework of social psychology as a subjective or mental preparation for action. Attitudes are defined as mental predisposition to act that is expressed by evaluating a particular entity with some degree of favor and disfavor. So attitude is a broad topic, but on regards on our main topic, which is the affective domain. So if the learners wanted to learn and his attitude is, what do you call this, going with the flow in his goal to learn, then the teacher can be effortless teach that learner, and then the learner will effortless also to learn. But if the student doesn't want to learn, then the effort of the teacher in teaching that kind of learner will be useless. So there are 4 components of attitude: the cognitions, affective, behavioral, intention, evaluation. So these components are all under in the attitude. So there are specific parts of attitude. So first is the cognition. Cognitions are our beliefs, curious expectation, cause and effects, perceptions relative to the focal point. Statement of beliefs are expectations which vary from one individual to next. So the cognition is all about beliefs. So what you believe. So next is affect. So refers to feelings with respect to the focal object, fear, liking, anger. So on this affect, on this particular component of the attitude, affect uh, is talking about the feelings. So we all know that feelings really can affect our lives, also in learning. Next component is the behavioral intention. So refers to our goal as aspirations and our expected response to the attitude object. So from the word it said behavior intention. So we have different goals, intentions. So this also have a big impact. And the next is the evaluation. So in this evaluation, often considered the central component of attitude. It consists of imputation of some degree of goodness and badness to an attitude of object. So on this evaluation, we judge the right and wrong on this particular component. So next is why study attitude. So attitude can be influenced the way we act and think in the social communities we belong. They can function as framework, references for forming conclusion and interpreting or acting for or against an individuals, a concept, or an idea. So as what I've said earlier, attitude really affects if the learners wanted to really learn, then the teacher will effortless in teaching that particular learner. But if that learner will does not have the attitude to get learned, then the effort of the teacher will be useless. So next is the predisposition and attitude. So predisposition is an inclination beforehand to interpret the statement in a particular way, while attitude is a complex mental state involving beliefs, feelings, values, and disposition or act in a certain way. So attitude, it really regards on the feeling, the right and wrong, beliefs. So motivation, it is a reason or set of reason for engaging in particular behavior. The reason includes basic needs or an objective goal state of being or ideal that is desirable. So motivation, we all know that every person has motivation in life. So for me, my motivation is my family, uh, having a good life in the near future. So what I've said is my some of my motivation or goal. So you as a person, you always have a motivation to do things, to do the work. So if you doesn't have a motivation, then the work or the goal that is set by you will be useless because you don't have the reason. You doesn't have a reason to fight for that goal or for that objective that you have set. So motivation and desire represents the very foundation of learning. So if students don't want to learn, there will be no learnings. If they feel unable to learn, there will be no learning. desire and motivations are not academic achievement characteristics; they are affective characteristics. So, on this quote unquote, as you can see, what I've said earlier, if students don't want to learn, there will be learning. So, it's useless for the teacher to teach on that learner. So, if they feel unable to learn, there will be learning. So, the attitude, the characteristic, the environment will also affect the learning of the learners. So next, the two kinds of motivation. So intrinsic motivation and extrinsic motivation. So in the intrinsic occurs when people are internally motivated. So from that line, occurs when people are internally motivated to do something because it's either brings them pleasure. So you are motivated by your own reason. So you doesn't want you do not rely on the the compensation, the prizes. You are just doing that particular thing with all your own motivation, that if I got this thing finished, then it may help me, or it will affect my life in the near future. So the intrinsic is the opposite of extrinsic. So this extrinsic is which comes when a student compelled to do something because of the factor external to him or her, like money. So as you can see, in the extrinsic, you relies on the goods that you may get after doing that particular task or job. So extrinsic motivation is usually like you are assigned to do this particular job, then you may get high grades, or you will get compensated. So there is no really internally motivated, unlike the intrinsic, will that you are pleased by yourself, by your own, that to do that particular thing that can be helpful for you. So again, the difference is that in intrinsic, you are pleased by your own self to do that particular thing, or self-motivated, while the extrinsic is, what do you call it? It's like compensation motivation. Like you are motivated to do that task for the compensation. So next,
Development of assessment tools. So first, we had rating skills. So it refers to a set of categories designed to elicit information about a quantitative attribute in a social science. So
Rating scale is defined as close-ended survey questions used to present respondent feedback in comparative form for specific or particular features, product, or services.
Likert scale. In 1932, Rinses Likert developed the method of summated ratings, or what they call Likert scale, Likert scale, which is widely used.
A Likert scale is a psychometric scale commonly involved in research that employs questionnaires. It is the most widely used approach to scaling responses in surveys research, such that the term is often used interchangeably with rating scale, although there are other types of rating scales. The scale is named after the inventor psychologist Ernest Likert. Likert distinguished between a scale proper, which emerged from collective responses to a set of items, and the format in which responses are scored along the range, it's technically speaking.
So advantage of Likert scale. So they are quick and economically to administer and score. They are easily adaptable to the most attitude measurement situation. They provide direct and reliable assessment of attitude when scales are well constructed. They lend themselves well to item analysis procedure. So if there is an advantage, there is also a disadvantage. So disadvantage of Likert scale is it could be result are easily fake where individual want to present a false impression of their attitude. So intervals between points on the scale do not represent equal changes in the attitude of all individuals. Internal consistency of the scale may be difficult to achieve. Good attitude statements take time to construct. So, checklist. It is the most common and perhaps the easiest instrument in the affective domain. So, here are the steps in construction of checklist. So, set A, enumerate all the attributes and characteristics you wish to observe. B, arrange this attribute as it could be could be shopping list of characteristics. So C, ask student to mark those attributes which are present and to leave blank those which are not.
A basic example is the to-do list. A more advanced checklist would be a schedule which lays out tasks to be done according to time of the day or what we call factors. A primary task in checklist is documentation of the task and auditing against the documentations.
And now we have the features and principles of portfolio assessment. So a portfolio is a form of assessment that students do together with their teachers. So we all know assessment is a tool where the teachers can deliver their lessons. So portfolio is one of it. So in assessment we have the authentic and non-tradition. So it should do together with the students kay dili mahimong successful ang assessment or even the portfolio without the response of the students because it is due together with the students and the teachers because students they are the respondent of what the lessons given to the teachers because they are the learners. So next is a portfolio represents a selection of what the students believe are the best included from among the possible collection of things related to the concept being studied. So, di ba, before we answer or do the lessons about the teachers, we also evaluate the things that we gathered. So, portfolio it can be the collections of the best things that we learn about the lessons from the teacher. So before na to ibutang or posting something in portfolio kanang ato jud pilion kung unsa jud pinaka the best nga atong nakatunan about the lessons. So next we have letter C. A portfolio provides samples of the students' work which show growth over time. So, as like what I've said, na ang portfolio dito na to ibutang ato ang response sa teachers about the lessons. It includes the best of our learnings. It also show the growth kung unsa jud atong nakatunan kay in doing that sige na tag input kantog mga learnings. So makita na sad nato at didto or ma-showcase nato didto ato ang progress about sa mga lessons nga nahatag sa teachers. And lastly, letter D. The criteria for selecting and assessing the portfolio contents must be clear to the teacher and to the students at the outset of the process. So of course, before putting some information in portfolio or assessing some information or lessons in portfolio, it should be clear that both students and teachers must understand. Kay if dili siya clear, mag-lead magud siya misunderstanding both teachers and students. So dapat dali siyang masabtan both sides para mas madali ang trabaho sa both teachers and students.
So before I'm going to proceed to discuss about the purpose of portfolio, so let's define first the difference between portfolio and portfolio assessment. So when we say portfolio, it is the purposeful collection of students' works that includes their participation in selecting contents, the criteria for selection. While when we say portfolio assessment, this is one of the several authentic and non-traditional assessment techniques that have been used in education. So the purpose of portfolios. So first, portfolio assessment matches assessment to teaching, this means that portfolio assessment can relate and connect to any method or tools that the educators use to evaluate their students' performance. So second, that portfolio assessment has clear goals. So before the teacher going to let their students to create their own portfolio, so he or she must have already a set of clear goals or instructions to be given to the students so that they have the same objectives and they could assist their students in creating the portfolio. So the third is that portfolio assessment gives a profile of learners, which it shows in their abilities, their progress, and improvement as a learner. So the fourth one is that portfolio assessment is a tool for assessing a variety of skills, which through creating a portfolio, it shows the students' performance, their learnings, and also their realization in a certain subject, which is not more on memorization. So it is not normally testable in a single setting for traditional testing. So portfolio assessment develops awareness of students' own learning. So this means that the students are aware if their performance inside the class needed an improvement or not. And also next is that portfolio assessment caters to individuals in a heterogeneous class and develops social skills. So this means that portfolio assessment creates a diverse environment inside the class. It includes people with different social and ethnic backgrounds, which this includes the race and gender. So from that, it develops social skills in which the students interact to each other in creating their own portfolio. So portfolio assessment develops independent and active learners, which it lets students to become more responsible in keeping and organizing their learnings in files. And next, that portfolio assessment can improve motivation for learning and this achievement, which especially when the students see that they really have a good performance in class and receive a good remarks from the teacher, so they will be more motivated to learn and to achieve more. Lastly is that portfolio assessment provides opportunity for students and teachers dialogue, in which through creating a portfolio, it will create a bond between the student and teacher, since they will help each other in developing it. So from that, they will going to share the same goals and the learnings that they want to achieve. The essential elements of portfolio. So the first one is the cover letter. So this is where you see the profile of the author and how they tackle and how they go on to this process in making portfolio. So it is all about the author and how it also shows in there the progress as a learner. So the second one is the table of contents, which it shows the chronological contents or entries of the portfolio with numbered pages. Then next is the entries. So this could be both core elements or optional items. So when we say core elements, this involves all the contents or related topics in the subject that the students have to include. And when we say optional items, this is the topics that in which the students want to include or their own choice. So next is the date of all entries, which it facilitates the students a substantial proof of their growth over time. Then the fifth is that the draws of oral and written products and revised versions. So this is important to include because it shows how the students take effort and time to document and search information about the subject. Lastly is the reflection, in which it can appear at different stages in the learning process. So this could be formative or summative purposes. So reflection includes all the ideas or the learning gathered and realization of the students. It also shows their thoughts and opinion about the subject. And it also answers the question on what did they learn from the lesson and did they do well, what activities do they need to improve, and how they going to rate their performance inside the class. And those students at lower levels can write their reflection using their mother tongue, or those students who find it difficult to express themselves in English. The stages in implementing portfolio assessment. So the stage 1, identifying teaching goals to assess through portfolio. So this stage is very important since the teacher will going to set clear goals about what they hopes to achieve in teaching. So the goals will serve them as their guide on how they're going to assess their students' work. So next, that introducing the idea of portfolio assessment to your class. So though some of the students have already ideas about portfolio, yet the teacher may still explain to them by stating what the word portfolio means. And also, if portfolio assessment is a new thing for many students who are into traditional testing, so for this reason, it is very important for the teacher to introduce the concept to the class so that they will have more knowledge, or it will widen their ideas about what is really portfolio assessment is. So the stage 3 is the specification of portfolio content. So as a teacher, you have to explain what those topics are and information they have to include related to your subject. So you have to specify for each entry how it will be assessed so that there is no confusion towards to the students on how they're going to create their own portfolio. So the stage 4 is that giving clear and detailed guidelines for portfolio presentation. So setting guidelines will serve as limitation to the students in presenting evidence, because there is a tendency that the students can present evidences as many as they can, especially when the teacher left them on their own. So therefore, setting goals can avoid those situations. So the stage 5 is informing key officials, parents, and other stakeholders. So before you're going to use portfolio assessment, so you must identify your department head, dean, or principal. So in case a student of yours were going to complain about your new assessment method, so this will serve as your precaution. And parents, so you must inform the parents of your students so that if they're going to complain about their students' performance, so you can show to them the portfolio that is created or developed by their own child, and there it shows their child progress as a learner. So lastly is the stage 6, the development of the portfolio. So This is where the students do their tasks, gather information, and search substantial information about the subject. Also, as what I said earlier, both teachers and students must support each other as they go on to the development of the portfolio, since they were going to share the same goals, the same objectives, and the same learnings they want to achieve.
And now we have the types of portfolios. So first is documentation portfolio. So as the name implies, documentation, this approach involves a collection of work over time showing growth and improvements reflecting students' learning of identified outcomes. So this portfolio is also called growth portfolio in the literature. It can include it can include everything from brainstorming activities to drafts to finished products. So it can serve as record or the evidence of our learnings. So it and also from the word growth portfolio, we can determine the growth of each students if naba jud sila nasabtan. Kaya dito na to ma-showcase ang ato ang mga learning outcomes. So next, we have the process portfolio. So it demonstrates all facets or phases of the learning process. As such, these portfolios contain an extensive number of reflective journal, think logs, and other related forms of metacognitive processing. So this type of portfolio is kanang from the word process. So kanang by step jud ni siya or kanang dito na to makita ang mga learning processes sa usa ka lessons. So dito na to makita mga from the beginning until the end adto nila pang input ngadto ang mga kind of learning. So pareha sa mga journals, 'di ba? In doing or in making journals, ato na to ipakita ang from the beginning until the end sa lessons or sa about something. So mao na siya ang process portfolio. Adto na to i-input ang mga butang or ang mga steps in doing something. And lastly, we have the showcase portfolio. It only shows the best of the students' output and products. As such, this type of portfolio is best used for summative evaluation of students' mastery of key curriculum outcomes. So, this type of portfolio kay kanang diri lang gyud nato pangbutang ato ang mga best output sa tanan-tanan like the summary sa kanang about the lessons nga atong nasabtan. Dili na to kinahanglan pa katong from the beginning to the end. Kanang importante na lang ani niya kay ang ato ang mga important point nga na-sum up nato about sa lesson. Mao ni siya ang showcase portfolio. Unlike sa documentation, kay dito na to makita ang kanang growth nga kanang sa students from the beginning sa and also from the processing kay kanang it is more on the steps in doing something. Kani showcase portfolio no need na to gibutang ngare kung unsa jud ang kanang from the beginning or kung sa jud ang kanang the growth or the process about the learning. Ang ato na ibutan diri kay ang sum up like kung unsa jud nakatunan about sa students about the lesson. So mo ni siya mo ni ang showcase portfolio or the summary about the students outcome. So I guess we're done about our report because this is the last part of our report, the types of portfolio. So thank you guys for watching us and listening. So we are the group 3.
Alright.